85 millimeters or 24-70, 70-100 or 16-35, or I don't even know what that is. That's the question. What lens is this? Anyway, today we're talking about lenses, as you might have guessed. And we're gonna talk about the very first lens you could potentially buy. That's the dilemma of every newbie in photography and videography, and I'm gonna share my experience and hopefully help you make the right decision. Now, intro! Oh yes, baby, let's roll. Hello, welcome to a new video. Today we talk about gear, and you know how much I love talking about gear. If you don't know, hit the subscribe button now and you will understand very shortly in the future. If you're someone that's just approaching videography and photography, you might like this video because I'm gonna share my experience on my very first lens, and possibly I'm gonna help you out in choosing the right lens for you. When it comes to purchasing a new lens, and in particular if it's the very first lens, there's a lot of things to pondering on. The budget, first of all, then you're going to think about the content you're going to create, different things, photography, videography. If you're shooting indoors, outdoors, in studio, all these things are gonna add up and they're going to narrow down the choice of that lens. We're not talking about specific brands today, well, kind of. We're focusing on the focal length of the lens. I actually have different brands here. I've got Canon, Sony and Nikon because I use different gear, different setups for different jobs. And I just want to share which one was my very first lens and why I picked the lens and why I think it was the right choice for me at the time. When I started, I was using mini DV cameras. Well, that was back in 2001. Then I moved to the digital camera, still handycams. And the very first lens I bought was actually the 24-70 f4 by Sony. Now you can find the 24-70 f4 by Sony from 500 to 800 pounds, and you can convert that in your currency. And after the f4, I switched the camera as well. I went to the Sony Alpha series with the A7S I. Then I purchased the A7S II, and that's when I switched the 24-70 f4 to the G Master version. So the 24-70 f2.8, which is right here. The price range of this lens is now from 1,300 to 1,800 pounds, more or less. This comes from the professional range of Sony, and of course the quality is amazing. You can find the same focal length for other brands like the Canon. You can find the ultrasonic 24-70 Mark II, and the price range is the same, more or less. Your next question would be, okay, why the 24-70? And I'm gonna share the benefits I found in purchasing this lens first. It's a zoom lens, so you have a quite wide focal length range in only one lens. Also, the size is very portable and the weight is portable too. Very good reasons when you're traveling and you're a travel filmmaker or you're commuting a lot for work as well. It's very versatile for the focal length it has. So it goes from a wide angle, 24 is still considered wide angle, and it goes to 70 millimeters. So it can be used for landscape, if you are, again, a photographer, a landscape photographer, or if you use it for portrait, indoors, outdoors, it doesn't matter, because also the brightness of the lens is great. It's an f2.8, so quite bright in dark conditions too. By having a zoom lens from 24 to 70, you can also create nice bokeh. So you can create nice shallow depth of field, because this is still a full frame f2.8, so very bright lens, and you really can create that contrast between the background and your subject, so you can isolate your subject from the background. The G Master series are full frame lenses, so they can match perfectly your full frame camera, and I recommend actually to have a full frame camera with this lens. Otherwise, if you have a crop sensor camera, that's gonna crop the image from your lens. So I wouldn't spend so much money for a full frame lens if you have a crop sensor camera. So best match for me, G Master lenses with a full frame Sony camera in this case. 24-70 is a great range also because it doesn't distort your feature, human feature, as much as probably a 16mm lens. So 16 to 20, that's gonna distort and squeeze the people's face a bit too much. While this lens is great, as I mentioned, for portrait as well. From 35 to 200mm, those are great focal lengths for portrait photography, but also videography. And that's why also I picked this lens, because I'm one of those content creators that work with photography and videography. Probably 80% of my work is videography, but still 20% is photography. And I need very versatile lenses, as the 24-70. The G Master series is great because it's very sharp. The images you take with these lenses are amazing, so I can't recommend them more. Same thing happens with different brands, guys, don't get me wrong. I'm just talking about Sony because that's probably what I spend more time with, the Sony brand. But still now I've been using the Canon for a couple of years. It's also probably the only zoom lens between the 16-35, 24-70 and 70-200, which can kind of reproduce a macro lens effects. So I can get very close to my subject and really focus on small objects as well. Something I couldn't achieve with a 70-200 because the minimum distance from this lens and the subject is probably 3 meters away or something like that. So maybe 1 meter to 3 meters, that's the minimum distance from my subject. 16-35 can get very close, but it doesn't have the bokeh that I can get with the 24-70. So for product photography as well, I definitely recommend this one. Then if you do wild photography and if you're using a full frame camera and if you're using the Sony Alpha series, which can actually crop the sensor, that's the way when I would crop my sensor and match it with the G Master lenses. Because when you crop the sensor, you can get from 70mm probably to 100. So you can get even closer to the subject. And it's gonna give you another 30mm focal length on only one lens. So if you're traveling, I keep repeating it, this is top. And it's something you couldn't achieve instead with the 16-35. This is too wide, and still if you crop the sensor on a Sony Alpha camera, you can probably reach 50mm. Probably better for portrait than for wildlife or travel photography. I'm not talking about the cheapest lenses in the market, bear in mind, but definitely if you do have the budget and if you need to split the budget between the camera and the lens, I recommend to spend more money on a good lens than on the latest camera. 24-70 is probably the most versatile lens you can possibly buy. For me, that was probably the lens I used the most. Then things changed because also my content changed, but we're gonna talk about that maybe in a different vlog. You can find all the lenses and the gear I use in the description tab, and also leave a comment down here if you want to know more about video making in general. Go and check my online courses for video editing and graphic design. If you're using Adobe Premiere Pro, I've got one of the best seller courses on Udemy, which is also my website, so go and check it out right now. I'm gonna leave in the description tab also a few options of the 24-70. So if you have a different brand, you can go and check that version related to your brand. I wanna push you in keep making great content, keep creating stuff. The world needs art, and that's what we are doing. So let's make it better. I hope to see you in the next video, but mainly I hope my video helped you in your decision. I'll see you in the next one. God bless you and take care.
Seems all good times come and go your way. Child memories fall into rolling.